Flying solo once again on this Limitless episode, number 8, When Pirates Pirate Pirates. Brian is such a fun character. He and Rebecca are at Naz's place and Brian is overjoyed. Naz is putting protection in place for Brian before she goes to DC to meet about the CIA taking Brian without her permission. The reason Rebecca and Brian are here is because if things in DC go south, this is Brian's safe place. If DC finds out that Brian is not immune from NZT side effects because of his environment, they could move him to DC. Not to a safe house, but in a cell where he'll be tested non-stop. Speaking of non-stop, if you would like non-stop fun, action, entertainment, pick up my 68-page graphic novel, Everlasting Survivors, Volume 1, all day long. You can get yours by clicking the link in the description below this video. There are limited first printing still available of the Jeff Hicks cover A, or the Nick Crook cover B. There were only ever 100 Jeff Hicks covers printed, only ever 50 of Nick Crook's covers printed. When these sell out, they will never be printed again. When it returns to Indiegogo, there will be brand new covers. Back to the show. Brian says Naz going to DC to kick ass and take names. She tells Brian, picture that however you like, and Brian pictures an old school 16-bit type video game. In DC, Naz and a guy named Kenny go into a big meeting about the CIA abduction of Brian. And Naz is not kind in this meeting. The underboss says that what Naz wants doesn't exist. She can't get her the paperwork that says who approved Brian being taken by the CIA. Supposedly the head FBI lady only found out about this yesterday, which I'm skeptical of. Back at FBI headquarters in New York, Brian asks Ike how he got stuck with this job. Ike fell asleep at an Alaskan stakeout. He says it's dark all the time there. It's, true story from Ike. It's believable that you'd fall asleep on a stakeout at a place that's always dark. Ike tosses the NZT into Brian's mouth because they were playing games with candy. And Rebecca walks in and says Naz is back. Harris says DC agreed to a formal investigation. Her and Brian walk out to greet Naz, only to find out that she is being detained by the FBI and that the investigation is into her. It's a very nice big twist. A new guy has been put in charge of the New York FBI headquarters. His name is Assistant Director in Charge Grady Johnson. Brian imagines Johnson has a trading card, and he goes over all his stats. None of them are very pleasant because, Brian's funny like that. When Brian and Harris leave what was Naz's office but is currently Grady's, Brian reveals that he stole Grady's cell phone and that Naz mouthed pomegranate to him, which tells him and Rebecca that they need to get to the safe house. On the way, Brian tells Harris that he needs to go to his apartment to get his go bag to go to the safe house. Harris is worried Grady will ping the cell phone, but Brian is very certain that Grady is too egotistical to even report that it was taken. Naz is suspected of funding terrorists. Brian is texting the FBI top lady pretending to be Grady, and it's just funny stuff. Brian being Brian. Grady is kissing Boyles behind back at the FBI New York headquarters, trying to get him to switch sides. The safe house has been compromised, but it's not really, because shortly it's revealed that it was Naz's own daughter who made it to the safe house before Rebecca and Brian, because they had to stop off at his place. And that at this point is revealed why the title of the episode is Pirates Pirating Pirates, because Naz's niece got taken by pirates while she was on vacation. Brian is so funny. Harris asks him what he is thinking about, and he says he is trying to figure out if this can end with him sword fighting pirates. It is revealed by Naz's own daughter that she's guilty of what the FBI are investigating her for, but not for the reasons they think she's guilty. She did pay off a known terrorist, but only for him to negotiate with the pirates. Brian and Rebecca don't know where to look, but they know what they need. They need that paper that says the FBI signed off on Brian being used by the CIA to free Naz from this investigation. Harris goes to Boyle to try and get him on their side, and she even gives him a leverage to use against Johnson. But Boyle, he stands up to her in this and makes it seem as though he might not be on their side, and asks her why she thinks that he will take their side. And she says that she knows he's out for the best interest of this office, the FBI office. Harris reaches out to Kenny, the old friend of Naz's back in D.C. He's trying to help Harrison Finch as best he can back in D.C. While Harris is working with Boyle, Brian is relating or bonding with Naz's daughter over both being screw-ups. The terrorist who was negotiating on behalf of Naz to get her niece back calls with information that inspired the title, because it wasn't just pirates that took the niece. Well, it was, but now other pirates have taken the hostages those pirates had, and the pirates have pirated from the pirates. No one survived that the terrorists knew, so the negotiations can't continue the way that they were being done before. Brian uses the taken line, "I have a certain set of skills," on Naz's daughter, which is funny. Rebecca asks Brian how he plans to do what needs to be done without NZT, and Brian, without missing a beat, says, "Before I answer that, I just want to remind you this is all being done in service of saving a girl's life." Such great writing and so much fun. Brian reveals he has his own stash of NZT. Harris is not okay with this development. You can see it on her face that she's not happy. She says, "We're going to talk about this later." With this NZT, Brian learns every language that is spoken in the South China Sea, and he uses a ham radio to find out where Naz's niece is. Rebecca is affected when Brian holds Naz's daughter's hand to comfort her. It's clear that she is into him, even though it's already been established she's messing around with the FBI's training fight coordinator guy. While Harris and Finch are working together to find Naz's niece, Boyle goes to Johnson with Finch's medical records, the bait that Harris wanted Boyle to use against them, and Boyle plays his role perfectly. Johnson takes Boyle to D.C. on the next flight because, they're ready to go. They're taking over. Brian is pulling in Die Hard with a vengeance, walking the streets with a sandwich board with the information he gathered from the information he got from using the ham radio to try and get in with people who are in America that know about the pirates who stole from the other pirates. While they're waiting on Brian to be captured by the people who know the pirates, Brian wants to play F, Marry, Kill with Harris, and while they are playing the game, we cut to Boyle, who's talking to Johnson, and then we see a side-by-side shot of Boyle and Harris both saying that they want to kill Finch at the same time. The show is so much freaking fun. Finally, bad guys do pick up Brian, and Boyle and Johnson are now in D.C. Oh no, it's revealed who the big bad was in D.C., and of course, how did nobody see it coming? It was Naz's friend Kenny all along. Kenny is the one who wanted to share Brian. He found Naz hoarding him to be, not good for the working relationship. After this is revealed, we go back to Brian. We see that Brian is critiquing the lair of the pirate friends and saying how that they could be more menacing and the pirates aren't having it. They want to kill him. But then Brian realizes what it would take to negotiate with these pirates, and so he says that he'll get them this rare pinball machine if they'll get the girl, the American, released. And they don't believe him, but he's curious. And so Kenny and Johnson pop in the USB drive that Boyle gave them back in DC, only to find that there's a cartoon of Finch popping up, dancing and on the screen and making fun of them. They want to talk to Boyle, but he's already left, and it's revealed that he got the letter that they need to free Naz, and it was hidden in a tin of brownies. So again, the show just doing all kinds of fun stuff all over the place. Even though it was a one of a kind, Harris and Finch negotiate for the rare pinball machine, and with this negotiation, they are able to get Naz's niece released. Team NZT is winning all over the place. Boyle, Harris, and Finch all meet up to try and figure out how to make this happen. And because they have the information, but how do they use it properly? So Brian says that he wants to take this information to his father, who used to be a part of the legal system, and so that they're on board, only for us to find out that Brian actually takes the information to Mr. Sands and tells him that Edward Mora could shine the light on this U.S. black op from the CIA and garner big points for election. And Sands isn't convinced, but Brian makes him get on board by saying, Naz is the devil you know, and if she's out, who knows if they'll be able to continue using NZT in the way that they have. We cut to the news to see that Kenny, Naz's old friend, has stepped down, and Naz is being released. Just like it was clear to me that Naz's daughter had the hots for Brian, Brian also sees it, and he shuts her down because he says, I still work for your mother. And she responds by saying, I'll just have to get you fired, which is really cute banter. Harris tells Brian back at the FBI that, Brian, I haven't forgotten, which means that they're still going to have that talk about Brian's personal NZT stash. Naz tells Brian her daughter could do much worse than him. This episode was very good. It gets a 4 out of 5 rating for me. I find it interesting that Brian is using Sands and Mara to his advantage now, even though we as the audience know that there is a good chance that Mara is a straight-up killer, both from the movie and with what happened to the doctor when Sands blew him up. So it's intriguing to see that Brian is growing and changing, but I'm not entirely certain it's for the best. But that's why this show is so much fun, is it's interesting and keeps things going in fun directions. Come back this Friday to hear my triple shot for WWE's Elimination Chamber, what I think will happen, what I want to happen, and a wild card pick. Come back this coming Monday for me, Brandon, and Josiah giving the Dark Knight trilogy the all or nothing treatment. And join me next week for the Wednesday Rewind when I go over episode 9 of Limitless.